Hello everyone, it's me, Cloudy, your favorite immersion Korean learner on YouTube. I hope you'll excuse the distraction. There's probably some mess behind me. I don't want to make too big of a deal about it. It's not much of a learning environment, but it gets me by. I'm sure plenty of you are learning in a much more inclusive and more in an environment that's better for learning, better suited than this. So yeah, it's what I have. It's what I have to work with, but it works. So, I wanted to talk to you guys today about my 8th month learning Korean with this immersion style. And then to recap just a little bit, I did learn a little bit. I learned, a couple dozen words and some basic grammar, the talk to me in Korean stuff for the month before I started this. But I basically... when I really started hunkering down and getting after it was, now about 8 months ago. So, my last update, I probably left you with a little bit of an impression that I had a couple of rough months. I skipped a month update, and I was learning much slower. Things were going a little roughly, but then, and I wasn't sure. I was a little bit not confident in how, I guess there probably was some confidence of whether or not I was really in this for the long run. Not any long-term thing, but it's something that happens, I think, when you commit to something for that long. 7 months in, after doing it every single day, you have some moments where you think, is this really what I want to be doing? I think you have to analyze those moments. But as you can see, I'm back. And I didn't really ever go anywhere. But for the last month, since my last update where I told you that I was recovering from some rough moments, I had told you then that I'd found my stride. And I also started the Korean Refold server under with the support and help of Ethan and Matt and everybody else from the Refold servers and that whole community. But I was, I'm the admin of the Refold Korean server, so I've been really involved with the community since then. And I have not been shirking my duty to myself for immersing and spending time reading and watching shows and making gains in the language learning sphere. So, to talk about my last month, things are pretty solid. I have felt pretty dang good about how my learning went this week, or this year. Excuse me, this month. It is a new year, but I will talk a little bit about that later. Let me pull my notes up here. I had them off to the side. Yeah, I want to start off by saying that in recovering from my doubt, I think a lot of it had to do with two things. I touched lightly on it earlier, but I had stopped finding stuff that I really cared about and I was interested in, and it made it a lot harder to be engaged with what I was learning in, and in turn that meant that I was learning less. So I think I learned from experience that being engaged and interested in the content that you're learning is one of the biggest keys to help, first of all, keep you motivated in the long term, but also to actually keep you learning. It sinks in much better. So definitely, I talk sometimes about how great web dramas are for language learners that are beginning with Korean. And some people just can't stand watching them. And I understand that completely. And so I really encourage those people to try things, try out different things that are easy or that people suggest, but then definitely you have to find something that you care about. Even if it is a little bit above your level, because you will eventually be able to tackle those things. We're built to overcome, like from the ground up. Our minds and our bodies are built to find patterns and to make sense of things. And even if it's a slow process, we eventually get there. So it's best if you can find stuff you care about that's easy, but really it comes down to you got to care about it. So I learned that lesson pretty well. And part of that was I had been using a pre-made sentence deck. It was vocabulary sentences for Anki, and each sentence was pretty simple and was basically focused on trying to get me to learn one new word. And I just felt like by the time I was getting through it, I was forgetting so many words. Because this was all during the time where I was not really engaged and had felt like I was a little lost in things, I was using this pre-made sentence deck at the same time. So it was all of these different things that were lining up. Not really watching what I was caring about, not really reading a lot, and then using this pre-made sentence deck. It was so detached from myself, like from my own personal experience, what I cared about. And I think that emotional context is powerful for learning. So I definitely didn't feel great about the progress that I made from that deck as far as words learned. I did learn some, and a lot of it, I think, this was a lot of words. This is over 1,000 words that I used in this deck. So a lot of it was stuff that I think it wasn't a complete waste of time, but I could have used that time better, I think. So I learned some words in a sort of half effort way. Like I kind of learned them and I'll probably forget them, but because I went through it once, it's probably good for me. So I finished using that deck. If I had to guess about where my passive vocabulary is, I don't even know where to start. Maybe 2,500 words. But a lot of that is passive in the sense that I might recognize it if I was reading it in context. If I read through a sentence and guess like, oh yeah, I've seen this word, and if I make a guess at its meaning, that's partially informed by the effort I went through with this sentence deck. So not super enthusiastic about using pre-made decks anymore, and I think I never was, but I wanted to have something that would push me down the road, and that actually, to untangle that sentiment for a moment, I think there's a sense of like when I found myself, in the long run, like in the long haul, I'm in this for, I'm in it to win it. I'm in this to learn Korean to a high level. I think at a certain point during learning, you kind of want to just like get just, it's almost a greed. You just want to get all these words so that then you can get, forward in your learning. So I found myself kind of having this attitude where I on some days I wanted to just go through the motions and passively, not completely passively, but I just wanted to acquire these words and get it over with so that I could get to the fun stuff. And that's not my attitude every day, but I did have that some days. So I made it through that whole period, and this month I started out. Yeah, but for context, this was all before this month. But now, talking about December, I started without using Morphman. I kind of broke Morphman. I forgot that I needed to be on a specific version, and I updated it. And I've mentioned Morphman before, and it's kind of buggy, and you have to know what you're doing, and you have to have access to a specific fork of Morphman that is set up for Korean. So if you're on some of these servers where you can access that, you know, it's available to you, but you have to be on a specific version of Anki. You have to use this specific version of Morphman, and then you have to have a frequency list that's set up specifically for Morphman. And the parsing is not perfect because Korean is a lot more complicated than some of these other languages that use it. And as far as like the modifying word stems, you know, and verb conjugations, and having spaces in some of these, in some of the conjugations, really messes with Morphman. So it's not perfect, and it's a little buggy, and it's also this really impersonal thing. Like, it's just Morphman telling you what words you're going to learn next. So I was actually really relieved when I accidentally broke Morphman. I deleted it, and I haven't looked back. But that meant that I had to adjust my habits again to manual sentence mining, because I would like to take advantage of Anki. And I always found the best use for Anki was manual sentence mining, where I find a sentence in my reading or listening, or while I'm watching a show and reading the subtitles along with it. I find a word that I want to learn, and it's in a sentence that is a 1T sentence, where I know all of the words except for that one. That's totally ripe for Anki. You know, I type the sentence up or drag it, copy it, or whatever it is in Anki, and those sentences, those words, I always feel like, because I have that personal connection to, those words they go in and they're good, you know, for 90% of them, 95% of them, they're just good to go. It's such a more solid way of utilizing Anki as a supplement. So yeah, the other thing I started doing was using a monolingual dictionary alongside the regular ones that I'm using. For me, I use the Migaku dictionary, and I have a couple of dictionary files that I set up. You can find links to them in the Refold Discord server. But there are some dictionaries set up by Katrina, who is another Korean learner. She does update videos, and she's very active in the community, very helpful. She's awesome. But she packaged these KR-dict dictionaries to work with Morphman. She packaged them in a JSON format or something. I'm not a programmer. I don't know the technical details. I just know I put them in the Migaku dictionary, and I have I rearranged them so that the monolingual dictionary comes up first, and then the English definition comes up second. So I've begun looking up words in that way, and I read through the monolingual dictionary first, and usually I try to usually there are words in there that I don't understand. So I'm transitioning into being able to understand a lot of the dictionary type language by mining from those definitions, because some of them are 1T sentences, and and then some of them I understand completely, so I'll just put that on the back of my dictionary card, or my Anki card. So yeah, that's been really interesting. Learning definitions of words through Korean definitions is exciting, because you don't have to translate as much, and you can kind of get meaning. If you're not forcing yourself to translate, you can just look it up in the Korean dictionary and understand it because of these other Korean words that you know. So that's exciting, and it's just more extra reading practice that is really useful, I think. So that is good stuff. Let's see, what else do I have here? Yeah, speaking of reading practice, I have made it an effort to really dig into reading. And so I started again with the Reading Korean with Culture series. And it is very similar to the Yonsei reader. And that is, it's basically a textbook where it has passages that increasingly get more difficult as the book progresses, from book to book as well as the series goes on. So they add vocab every time, and they add small bits of different grammar for subtle differences. So it's a nice progression. But the Yonsei was a little bit tough, so I decided to utilize both. I'm on the Yonsei too, but I started with the Korean Reading with Culture, which I found on Google Play Books. So it was easy for me to get on my phone and on my computer, and I could just look through those really easily. I read through book 1 just as kind of a review and extra reading practice, I guess. And there's a lot of passages that I was just completely, I didn't have to look anything up. It was really nice. But now I'm working through book 2 of that, and then also working through simultaneously the Yonsei 2 reader. And then I also started with the webtoons. I think it's called Koroso 40분. And that is like about these two, this like kind of shy teenager, and she like meets this other shy teenager in her class, and they have I don't know, kind of, they have a lot of stuff in common, and they have, interesting conversations and stuff. They're kind of in their own little universe amongst all their friends. So it's like about the connection between them. But anyway, the art is good, and the story is easy enough to follow. I think it goes very well with the visuals in telling the story. And I've read more this month than I have in all of my other months combined. So I'm finally getting to a point where I can read some at a decent pace and kind of just glean the meaning instantly from a lot of things as I'm going through trying to understand it. So there's still tons of words that I have to look up, and I treat reading almost entirely as a intensive practice where I'm looking up everything that I don't know, looking up every word that I don't know, for the most part. And for the grammar, I'm trying to let some of it sink in slowly over and over again before looking it up, before reminding myself and looking it up again, because I've seen most of it before, but sometimes the meanings are a little fuzzy. So occasionally I look it up, occasionally I let it go by, just so that I can get some practice of seeing it in context of how it's used, and then also seeing, how it's defined and getting the meaning of it in the context of the sentence. Grammar for me is really slow. Like that's something that I'm not really interested in getting a really I'm not interested in doing like a classic grammar study, intensive study thing where I go through a grammar book and do all the exercises. I'm not interested in doing that. But I know that I will pick this up slowly through immersion and through reinforcing it by looking up what it means and Google searching and reading, how to study Korean articles on that thing. So that's slow, but it's kind of coming together. I really think the repetition is what really counts for getting grammar to sink in. So, I'm really hoping that will clear up a lot in the next coming months. And I think it will, because I'm only interested in continuing more. So another thing, this is a big update, sorry. It's gonna be a little bit longer than the last one. I started in the content that I found, I made a focus of trying to find content that I enjoyed. And I had the idea of watching through the LOONA TV series, and it's from the girl group, the K-pop girl group LOONA. Some of you guys stan LOONA out there. And they have this series where it's like vlogs. They're 1 minute vlogs. They release, a few a week, sometimes every day for a week or so. It's very frequent. But they have like 600 episodes. And then they have other videos that are a little bit longer. So I found a playlist with all of the episodes from their channel. It's like 900 videos. So I've been watching through that with the subtitles, and it's been really awesome because I've seen it all before, before I started learning Korean. So I know a lot of the situations vaguely. I have memory of them, but I'm reading through it, and I was so amazed at my comprehension. It was a huge confidence booster. There's so many episodes where I don't need to look anything up, and I'm reading it as they're saying it, so I'm getting reading practice that's really fast. And I'm also learning a lot of the little like uniquely K-pop lingo, and a lot of some of the phrases that young people use a lot, and it's been good to mine from as well. And I'm learning. I'm getting more comfortable with reading. I'm using it as an opportunity to like really enjoy comprehending, just practicing comprehending what I'm hearing, practicing comprehending what I'm reading. It may seem a little redundant to some people, but the way I see it is it's like practicing comprehending something instantly in the middle of a sentence is something that it takes repetition and time. So that's not wasted time, and I do that for some of my study time, maybe half an hour to an hour in the evenings. But it's been the most enjoyable thing I've ever watched in Korean, because I understand so much of it, and I care about the group. They're fun, I like the music, I like the vibe and the style of the group. So that's been a huge confidence booster. That's been a win for me. I'm really happy about that. It was showing me how much progress I've actually made. It's very surface level stuff. I'm not saying that it's complicated, but the fact that I can see all of these update videos and understand 95, 98, and sometimes 100% of it in a lot of the episodes, but the rest of it is like 90%. 90 to 95%. I don't know. It's a lot. I didn't know that I would be able to do that with content that was made, for Koreans. So yes. Where am I here? Oh yeah, I also started watching High Kick 3. It doesn't have subtitles, but it's enjoyable anyway. It's good practice for comprehension, and it's a comfy thing to watch. The last thing of the night before I go to bed. Over the past week or so, week and a half, I called out to the community to help me with a project. Someone in the Korean Discord server, Yonsei Gunja, I think is his name. I can't remember. That's got to be his name. He knows who I'm talking about. He found transcripts for High Kick 2 on the internet. I think I had seen him around before a long time ago. From Retro, I think he had mentioned that there were transcripts for the show, but there are no subtitles for the show. So I called out to the community to ask for volunteers to help out with this project, timing the subtitles for High Kick 2. I created a Excel sheet to keep track of who was doing what, and invited people to, like a Google Sheets thing. So I invited people who are doing it into the Google Sheets to start subtitling, and and then I also made a short video. I captured a video of me using a program called Subtitle Edit, and helped just to kind of describe how I had found through messing with it for an episode of how a workflow that I found for how to do it. Since then, I've learned a couple of new tips, and I've gotten to be pretty quick at it. But yeah, I gathered some resources, gathered the transcripts, and asked for people for some help. And I was really pleased that a good number of people jumped at the chance to help out. And I'm happy to say that so far we've finished 15 episodes. It's only been, I think, a week. It's not a long time. There's 126 episodes in the show. So it would have taken me a long time to do it myself. So I was really happy to do that. And then Katrina, also huge help. She helped clean up the transcripts. She helped by automating a cleanup system to make sure that, because a lot of the text was kind of formatted weirdly just because of, I don't know, errors in uploading it or whatever it was. But it was really hard to read some of it. Some of the spaces and line breaks got lost on some pages, so it was just a wall of text. It was really hard to go through. But she separated it all, got the speaking lines all on their own line, double spaced it all. It was really makes it so much easier and less effort and less frustration to do it. So big thanks to her. And then big thanks to everybody else who helped with that. Okay. I'll go back to my notes. I lost the page I was going to look at for that, but yeah, that's really exciting. I'm looking forward to getting that continued. So that's good. On a side note, I hit 500 subscribers on YouTube before the end of the year, and it's like the size of a pretty good sized theater. And it's a lot of people who wanted to see more from the channel, and so I'm really thankful for that. That channel grew quite a bit. This channel grew quite a bit over the year since I started this. I just this wild idea to turn on my webcam the day that I decided to do when I found the mass immersion approach website. The day that I decided to do it, made the video, and I've been making updates since then. And I'm looking forward to continuing with the channel. I'm not done. I think my possibilities for what I can do with the channel only keep growing as I continue learning Korean. So I'm looking forward to that. So looking forward, 2021, I think is going to be a big year for my Korean. I think this is going to be, I think, in a couple of months, I think, sorry, I just lost my train of thought there. I think in a couple of months, I'm going to be really hitting like another breakthrough with comprehension and being able to comprehend sentences and comprehend the meaning in a full sentence more actively and getting my base vocab up. By the time I hit a year, I really do think that I'm going to be in a pretty good spot. And that's what I'm aiming to do. I think I could have done things a little bit faster coming up to this point if I would have played things different. But I learned enough to know going forward what I can do better. So by the time I hit a year, I think I'll be in a pretty good spot. by the end of the year, I want to be practicing outputting and shadowing and writing sometime this year. I don't know when that'll happen, but yeah, so this month specifically, I really do want to focus on continuing to read and continuing to find shows that I enjoy and finding more web dramas that I enjoy and digging more into that. And working through the Yonsei and the Korean reading with culture. And then touch on the grammar stuff a little bit again for review, because I really want to move beyond all of this beginner stuff. Basically, I want to get it. I want to get my understanding down. So I know that reading is going to be the most important thing for doing that, and to make sure that these structures make sense in my brain. So I'm going to be reading. Yeah, so I've got some books in the mail, some like easy readers that are for young adults. For their simplified stories of classics in Korean. So like Tom Sawyer, and I can't remember. It's been a while. I ordered it like a month and a half ago, and they finally got back to me and said sorry, it was late. But I got some of those, and then also, let's see if I got from a friend in Korea. I got the Goosebumps books, 3 of them, the first 3 in Korean, and I want to tackle the first one sometime this month, at least get started in it, or at least be ready to start by next month. So that's like, if I had a vague goal, that's what I want. I want to be aiming to be able to do that and just dive in and just read through this first half of the year. So yeah, this updates ended up being a little bit longer than I expected, but there's a lot to go through, because I feel like with that little bit of a break, without seeing much progress, when I finally dug back into it, it all came rushing back. So I felt like I had a lot to talk about this time. So hopefully that wasn't too long. I want to thank all of you for following me along with this journey. It's been kind of a wild ride. I've learned a lot about myself in doing this. I'm 31 years old, and I had not really learned a second language before, other than my brief time in high school class learning German. And I don't remember anything from it hardly, and I can barely say. I remember like the basic, some basic random words. This is basically the first time I've ever actually tried to learn a language. But yeah, I wanted to say I really enjoy watching other people's updates. It's something I like to do at work, to mix it in, instead of just listening to Korean stuff at work. I like to break it up in the afternoons with listening to a little bit of English stuff. So I like to be able to listen to more Korean learners' updates. So for any of you who are thinking about doing it, I encourage you to do so. It's pretty fun to be able to have a track of your progress and to be able to share your ideas with people. You don't have to do it on video. You can just record your audio and then maybe have stock footage, or you can record it in your modest cabin in the mountains, during the snowstorm. It's I know this is probably an eyesore for you guys to watch, but yeah, thank you so much. If you want to see more, please do like the video and subscribe so you can see more from my channel, and that lets me know that you like what I'm doing. And until then, I will see you guys next time.